what's up guys, welcome back to the channel, and on today's video I got a good one for you. I know I always say that, but in reality I do review a lot of good stuff. But today we're looking at something new from Mizuno. I know you've already heard about it. This shoe has had a lot of hype building it up before its release, but today I'm reviewing the Mizuno Neo Zen. Let's get into it. Alright, full disclosure, Mizuno was good enough to send me this pair of the Neo Zen for the purpose of review. However, they haven't told me what to say, they don't have any editorial privileges, and all the thoughts and opinions are my own. With that said, you're going to be able to pick up a pair of the Neo Zen for $150. And of course, I'll place links in the show notes below in case you want to pick up a pair for yourself. Okay, let's get this video started off in a different direction than we usually do, because I feel like this is probably the most important thing if you're at this stage of your buying process, like you're kind of looking for shoes, you're thinking about the Neo Zen, maybe you've clicked on this video because you're interested in the shoe. And so right off the bat, I think the most important thing to tell you is that for me, this shoe does not fit true to size. And actually this has happened a couple of times to me in the past with other Mizuno shoes. And I remember specifically it was the Neo Wind and the Neo Ultra. Both of those were just a little larger than I'm used to in a size 13. So when I put my foot into this is still a US men's size 13. Before I cinched it down, I thought it was just a little wide in my forefoot and just slightly longer than I like. Now look, I realize we do need a little bit of room at the front of our shoes, and having a little bit of width just gives your foot room to move around. But I thought it was more than I'm usually used to in other Mizuno shoes. So right off the bat, if you're going to order a pair of the Neo Zen, I think you should probably size down half a size at least. Now, if you do order your normal size and you think it's just a little too big, I want you to know that all is not lost, and I'll explain a little more as the review goes on. Now let's jump back into like the normal sequence of events with a review. So the Neo Zen has 40 in the heel, 34 in the forefoot for a 6mm drop. Mizuno says that a US men's size 9 would tip the scale at 8.5 ounces or 241 grams, but in my size, a US men's size 13, at least that's the size that I've been running in and the size I weighed, it tips the scale at only 10.3 ounces or 293 grams. So this is a fairly light shoe. And because it's so light, it's kind of difficult for me to say exactly what this is going to be used for. Well, no, I take that back. It's not difficult. This is a daily trainer, right? Through and through, it's a daily trainer. But because it's so light, I think it really is going to suit those times when you like to pick up the pace. Or let me clarify, it's going to suit those times when you want to pick up the pace, but you don't want to wear a plated shoe. And I think that is just, it's a product of the weight being so light and the midsole foam, but we'll get down to that. Now, when I showed a little confusion as to what this shoe would actually be used for, it was because I was thinking about other shoes that it may compare to. And yes, you know, it's a max stack daily trainer, so I think we should consider comparing it to shoes like the Brooks Glycerin 22, but there's a slight problem with comparing it to shoes like this, because the Brooks Glycerin 22 is $165, it has a 10mm drop as opposed to a 6mm drop, and in my size it weighs in at 360 grams, so that's 67 grams more than the Mizuno Neo Zen. So I think a better competitor for the Neo Zen is probably something like the Adidas Evo SL. And look, I think I heard a collective gasp, but these two shoes are actually fairly comparable, and it might be worth me doing a head-to-head video. But anyway, they're comparable because the Neo Zen costs $150, the Evo SL also costs $150. The Evo SL has 38.5 in the heel, 32 in the forefoot for a 6.5mm drop, and it weighs 283 grams, so that is 10 grams lighter than the Neo Zen. So those are the shoes that I want you to think about when you're considering the Neo Zen, but the Glycerin 22 was really a stand-in for all max cushion daily trainers. Right. Let's start at the top and work our way down. And, well, first thing I have to say, because this colors everything about the shoe, but the Neo Zen is using a one-piece knit upper. So when I draw your attention to the heel collar, you can see that it is just a very thin piece of knit. Like, there's no padding around here. There's nothing really protecting the side of your foot from rubbing up against the side of the shoe. I mean, and that's totally fine. You're going to be wearing socks. And there might be one or two of you out there that are thinking, well, man, what if I don't want to wear socks with my shoes? Well, that's disgusting. It is especially disgusting in a knit shoe, because all that foot sweat is just going to soak right into the upper. But anyway, that's probably how Mizuno is saving so much weight on the Neo Zen. There's none of that excess padding. Now, the heel counter is fairly flexible, and I mean it's very flexible. You can see how I'm able to just push that down like that. So if you do suffer from like a lot of heel slip in shoes that don't have a rigid heel counter, this may not be the shoe for you, but I do have to tell you that we do have this additional hole in case you wanted to do the lace lock method, and I didn't experience any heel slip, like not even a hint of heel slip in the Neo Zen. So that's a good thing. You can also also see the back of the shoe kind of angles inward just slightly, and this is creating a nice little pocket for the heel of your foot to just sit down in it, and the shoe holds your foot pretty well in place. Now we do have some underlays or some slight padding right here, and it's not really padding, but this is just giving a slight bit of structure to that heel counter in the back, but it's really nothing, just a little support. Now back to the upper. It is a knit upper, although it appears to be very breathable. Now I have been testing this shoe in fairly cold conditions for me, so I actually haven't minded running in a knit shoe. You know, in the summertime when it's just super hot and my feet get so sweaty and my shoes get soaked, not really a fan of a knit upper then. But while it's cold out, the knit upper seemed very breathable and super comfortable. Oh, one thing that's a little funny, this probably isn't going to matter to you, but you should know anyway, is that the laces are quite long. In fact, I was finding myself having to triple knot them in order to just use up some of the laces. And to me, they seem quite slippy, although I'm not sure if I think they're really slippy, or in my training runs, they did come untied twice. Now, I've got to be honest, that's probably something like user error, but because they came untied twice, I did take a closer look at them, and then I'm trying to explain away why the laces came untied, and I thought they seemed quite slippy, but that's probably neither here nor there. Just something I want you to be aware of. I think maybe if you were just a semi-decent shoelace tire upper, they probably wouldn't come untied, but even if you are the best shoelace tire, it's not going to take away from the laces being so long. You're going to have to do something with them. Oh, just want to draw your attention to this. And usually I don't care about a heel pull, but in the case of the Neo Zen, this is an absolute necessity. Now, when you get these pair of shoes in the box, they're going to be quite loose. They're all going to be laced nicely, and your foot is just going to slide right in because everything's loose. But once you lock those down, once you tighten those laces, get a good midfoot lock, your foot is really going to be locked into place. Then when you get home, at the end of a run, you really don't care about undoing the laces and making sure they're all loose all the way down before your foot gently slides out. No, you grab it by the heel and you kind of just wrench it off. Okay, when you do that, the laces are still tight. So when you go to put your foot in the next day, you're going to find that there's not enough room to get your foot in. And that is when this heel pull really comes in handy, because you can put your foot in and then just yank on this heel pull and the shoe slides on. Gosh, I feel like I'm totally mansplaining how to put a shoe on. But I guess the reason I am telling you is because usually I never use this heel pull. But in the case of a knit upper with a very floppy heel counter, yeah, the heel pull is necessary. So it's good to see it here. Moving on to the overlays. Yeah, I already mentioned these little the hexagons here on the lateral and the medial side of the heel. Yeah, but we've got those. We've got the overlay coming around the toe bumper. We've got that reinforcement along the eyelet chain. And then that one-piece knit upper is just using different weaves of mesh, and that just helps create a little bit of structure to the upper. And you can see that because when I hold it up, that upper it's quite rigid, it's being held up on its own. So it isn't super floppy. And this is a good thing because I did find the upper actually held my foot in place. Even though when I put my foot in and the shoe was all loose before I tightened it down, I did think the shoe was too big. But even so, once I tightened it down, I actually had a good lockdown. Now, I still should go down half a size in this shoe for optimum fit, but I made it work. The shoe felt absolutely normal to run in, even though I think it was probably a little too big. But look, on the other side, if you have wide feet, maybe the Neo Zen is going to fit true to size, because there is quite a bit of volume in this upper. Now, I think as far as the population goes, my feet are probably quite narrow, because if you look at the top of the shoe, you can see where I've cinched those laces, and that upper is bunched all the way down the middle and even onto the toe box right here. That knit upper is soft enough where it's kind of overlapping. Now, this type of overlapping has the potential to create problems, right? Because this is a one-piece knit upper, we don't have a separate tongue, and the area of the shoe that would traditionally be the tongue is very thin. It's just that one layer of knit. So because there is so much volume in the Neo Zen, when I cinch those laces down and the upper folds over itself, I'm then getting a double layer of knit right on the top of my foot. And I think that could have the potential to create some hot spots on the top of your foot. Now, I say potential because, I'll be totally honest, the shoe was really comfortable and I didn't experience any of those hot spots on the top of my foot. But when I first tied it down, yeah, it did cross my mind. Oh, I do just want to point out that at the top of the tongue, and this is very similar to on the Neo Vista, we do have this little rubber piece. Basically, that is right where you're going to be tying your laces. So potentially where you actually tie that knot is going to be the tightest place on the shoe. So we do have this little bit of rubber just protecting that part of your foot. That could be why I didn't experience any hot spots, but who knows? Individual results are going to vary. Okay, so now let's come down to the midsole, because this is my favorite part of the shoe, and I don't know if you saw my review of the Neo Vista. You remember the Neo Vista? It looks something like this. Yeah, very similar looking shoe. The Neo Vista was actually the first shoe that Mizuno brought out with this Energy Next foam. Now, when the Neo Vista came out, I remember thinking to myself, man, this Energy Next foam is a game changer for Mizuno. Because traditionally Mizuno has had quite firm foams, and the Energy Next changed all of that. So then they started introducing it in some other shoes, like the Wave Sky 8, and I just liked the Wave Sky 8 even more too. And it was all because of the Energy Next foam that is in the Neo Zen. Now, Mizuno's Energy Next is a nitrogen-infused TPU foam, and it's a lot of fun to run in. And the reason it's so fun is because it's so soft and squishy, at least in the beginning, and fairly responsive. That's why I hesitate to compare it to other kind of max cushion daily trainers. It's just not on the same level. And if I'm honest, this Energy Next foam is the number one thing that I like about this shoe. Like, when it comes down to it, I'm not a fan of knit uppers, but I will forgive a lot because of the Energy Next foam. Now, when you're running it, as I said, it's very soft in the beginning. In fact, if you don't like a very soft foam, you may not initially like it when you first put your foot in, because when you're walking around, it does feel very squishy. But the beauty of this foam is that when you start picking up the pace, it almost feels like it firms up. And I remember saying the same thing about the Neo Vista. And the difference is very deceptive, because when you first put your shoe on, you think, it's going to be so soft, it's going to zap my energy, and it doesn't. It gives that energy right back. So that is probably, for me, what makes the Neo Zen such a well-rounded daily trainer, because it is soft. And when I'm running slower, the foam does seem softer than when I start picking up the pace, and it seems like that foam firms up just a little bit. Now, there is no plate in the Neo Zen, and yet the shoe it's fairly stiff. I mean, not really stiff, I could bend it in half, but it's stiffer than I would think from a non-plated shoe. And that's probably because we have 34 millimeters right here in the forefoot where I'm trying to bend it. But overall, I think most runners are going to really like the Energy Next foam. Of course, if you've run in a shoe with Energy Next and you don't like it, I would definitely love to hear from you. So let's just briefly come down to the outsole. You can see we've got a good amount of outsole rubber, got a nice midfoot groove with the exposed midsole foam. And this outsole rubber that Mizuno is using is also fairly soft. So you don't get that slapping motion from the outsole rubber being too firm. Now, if I look at the wear on the back, even though I said that this outsole rubber is soft, it does seem to be holding up remarkably well. In fact, where I normally see wear on my rear lateral heel, I'm not seeing anything. That's surprising. Well, maybe I am seeing a little bit of wear up here on my forefoot, but it's very minor. So as far as wear goes and time you're going to have this shoe, I'm going to say it's going to stand up to an average amount of running, 350, 400 miles, I bet. Oh, and the shoe rolls very nicely. If I hold it up, you can see we've got quite a bit of toe spring there and a very slight heel bevel here on the back. In fact, now I'm looking at it, I didn't actually put that in my notes, but now I'm looking at it, I'm surprised the heel bevel isn't more pronounced because the shoe did feel really smooth when I was running in it. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you run in the Mizuno Neo Zen? If not, are you thinking of picking up a pair? Don't forget to check out the link in the show notes below if you want to pick up a pair for yourself. But for now, it's Matt B. This has been my review of Mizuno's Neo Zen. Be kind, be happy, run well. See you in a couple of days.